On behalf of the Professional Baseball Strength and Conditioning Coaches Society, I'd like to welcome you to the PBSCCS Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Messina.
How about like success? What do you believe makes a strength and conditioning coach successful?
I mean, I don't know if there's a simple answer to that. I think, really what our goal is to help develop players, develop their ability to compete in their sport, if it's baseball, or if it's track and field, or if it's, basketball, whatever. So I don't know if there's a great metric. Like obviously we could say, oh, we're going to test, their strength, we're going to test their vertical jumps. I think as long as you're creating some buy-in and you're just helping the player the best you can, trying to make them stronger, more powerful, faster, more durable. I don't really know how you quantify that sometimes. I think we all try to. But I think, kind of like you said, like if you help a guy and they buy into what you're giving them because you have a solid foundation, and they come back and they said bring a friend, especially because they're saying like, man, how much he helped me, like you've got to try this out. So you really can't quantify that sometimes. But like the meathead answer to me is like, oh yeah, well their maxes are all going up, their vertical jumps are all going up, they're 40 times or 60 times or better. But just really think it's you have to kind of, I guess, set your own barometer of what success is and what it looks like. But really at the end of the day, it's like we're just our job is to help guys get better. And sometimes it's, the strength aspect, sometimes the power aspect. So you got to kind of find the measure that you want to use for yourself and for the players you're working with.
Yeah, like I said, I think if you can get guys or girls, depending on what sport you're working in, obviously, if you can get them to come in and buy in and just keep coming back. And I think it's, a lot of people say it, right? Like the best program is the one that people buy into the most. Like it's true. Like if you're just consistent and you give 100% effort and you actually believe in the program, like you're going to get results, you know what I mean? And it's hard to argue with that. And again, the thing is, you say like, there's no metric for, success. Like, yeah, we can think if somebody's vertical jump goes up, they're going to perform better on the field, but we can't guarantee it, right? Like and the other thing is like, we can't disprove it either, right? Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Maybe the vertical jump made him a better hitter, maybe it didn't, maybe it made him a better sprinter, which made him a better base stealer. You can't measure that, right? Like it's hard to just put one thing on success. But I think, like you said, the biggest thing is just creating some buy-in, getting players to come in consistently, follow your program, and really just trying to help them however you can. And again, that's different for everybody. Like some guys want to throw harder, some guys want to hit harder, some guys want to run faster, like some guys want to stay healthy on the field. And like as those goals kind of morph, especially I think the higher you move up, like more of these guys have like individual goals as they move up, and like they're trying to be successful at the highest level. Like, to be honest, sometimes they just need somebody to talk to, like talk them
that's
off
a
of
big part of our job. Yeah, I mean,
100%.
that's like nowadays we obviously have mental skills has become more of a real thing, which is great. But back in the day, your mental skills was your athletic trainers, your strength coaches, because that's where the athletes come and they feel safe and they put their guard down because they don't think you're judging them based off how they're on the field, or you're definitely not going to say like, oh man, this guy's going through some weird stuff, like he's not going to play, like we're not going to put him in the lineup. They could feel like they let their guard down, they could talk about real life things. I think that's something that's we don't have to worry about as much, but it's still a big part of our job. Just having like even like this like chair in your office that a guy comes sits down in before he works out or after, and we just talk about some real life stuff. It's like invaluable, and some of you guys really really need that.
Yeah, even in the dugout or just phone calls, texting, FaceTime. Like we've had guys from other teams FaceTime with us, and like, hey, how you doing? How's everything? Like, and that's how you know you made an impact with that guy, right? Like he's FaceTiming you out of the blue just to chat and see how you're doing. And in his moment of boredom, he's like, let me call this guy and see how he's doing. So I think again, realistically that's success to me, right? Like if you can get a guy to buy in, or you can get a guy just mentally in a better place to go out and perform. Like, especially at the level we're at in the big leagues, like they have to perform tonight, right? Like,
Mhm.
even if their aura ring says they're not ready, or their hoop says they're in the red, or they're tired, whatever it is, we have to get them ready to play tonight. Like, they're not going to be out of the lineup just because their readiness score is poor, right? So how can
Right.
we help them today? Like, sometimes it's talking to them, sometimes it's a hard training session, sometimes
Yeah.
it's extra supplements. So like, and for me, like, that's a big success each day, is just getting each one of those guys to just be prepared to do their best. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And then, like you said, you come back again tomorrow and you try it all over and keep doing that for 7 months. And then before you know it, the season's over and you're like, kind of miss
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah, I mean, and not, it's funny to talk about like just the connection with guys and athletes is, having worked in like the college setting, the high school setting, one of the coolest things I think that I've seen is some of the kids that I've worked with who, had never really worked out before is, kind of like through social media, we all have these connections that we can kind of keep tabs on people, and just seeing them continue on with some of the things that, like just even working out, having a schedule, or if they contact you and, still want your advice on stuff, and there was a time when I was working at the high school, and they had this a girl who came and worked out, and she just told me how this really helped impact her life, in so many ways. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know, because you still think about how just little things, like little interactions, outside of obviously like helping them get stronger and stuff, can really impact people. And I think those are the things that you definitely can't measure on a metric. And then sometimes you'll never even know because they may never tell you, and even the guy like that I worked with in college, he on the rowing team, the one thing that he really took away from our interaction was like, he said how patient I was working with him, because he would come in and do extra work because, he wanted to get better. And, you could tell like there was, it wasn't super coordinated, had a hard time kind of grasping some concepts. But the fact that, I just worked with him and it took the time to do it, like it meant a lot to him, which, he voiced it, which I would never have known. I just thought like, this guy likes to come work out. It's great. But, again, the things that you never know the impacts you have on people until, hopefully you can ever find out, but sometimes you'll never know.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing, is like you said, we may never know. Right. But we go there with the intention of giving them our best. And I tell guys all the time, like, my goal today is just to get you prepared. My goal is not to ruin your career. Right. Like, I would never come in and like try to put you in the wrong position. And
Right.
I was talking to one of our players today, and I was like, I failed you because now I know better. Like, I'm more educated. And at the time, like, the plan that I had for you was the best plan. But now that we're 6 months removed from it, I've done my studying, I've looked back on things, I've really taken the time to digest what happened. I think
Right.
next year we're going to do this instead, and I think that will be better. And I mean, I think guys appreciate that. Like, you have
Yeah.
to be honest with them. And like, again, I'm not purposely trying to make that guy worse. I'm giving him my best that day.
Right.
But as
Exactly.
you become more educated, sometimes the thing you were doing wasn't the best thing. And it's, you have to be humble enough to admit it. And sometimes it's hard
Absolutely.
to look in the mirror and say that.
And I think that's, I mean, right what you said right there. I mean, the fact that you can assess, interactions and things that you did in the past, and really give yourself an honest evaluation to say like, that was, again, that was the best I had that time, but I've got to get better. And even admitting it to the player, like that's huge. Like that takes a lot to people to do that. I think self-evaluation, we see it all the time with our athletes, like, what they see versus what really is, really there is doesn't really add up. And I think a lot of times, for us, we always say, oh, you got to, do better to evaluate yourself and be real. It's like, well, if we can't do that with ourselves, how do we expect other people to do it? And it's not an easy task to do. It takes really some hard work and some hard conversations with yourself,
100%. Let's kind of roll with that. Do you have advice for others, other than just bettering like your self-evaluation skills?
Yeah. I'm going to say what was told to me when I interviewed my first job, which was an unpaid internship. If you can do anything else instead and be happy, do that instead. The reason that this was told to me, coming into strength conditioning as a field in athletics is, things that I've seen it come to fruition is, the first one is you're never going to get paid what you probably deserve. Second thing is you don't control your own destiny as far as your job. You're going to be tied to someone else's performance or someone else's evaluation. You're going to have to, have the ability to move basically at the drop of a hat, which happened to me a couple of times. So, if you can do anything else instead, be happy. That's what you should do, because the life that we lead, we don't control our destiny a lot of times. And so like, if, I'm married, I have 2 kids, 2 more on the way. And without that support system that's, ready to kind of ride with me, like I can't do this job. And, it's hard to like expect them to always want to do it. So that's actually one piece of advice that I tell a lot of coaches, like strength coaches, and even like when I was working in college, like some of the, people who were coming in as young coaches. And actually the guy who told me that advice, I said it back to him a couple of years ago. He's coming through the transition. He was like, "Man, I'm really glad you said that." I was like, "Well, you told it to me, back in the day." He's like, "Yeah, but you have to reevaluate sometimes, like where you're at, So I know it's not like a glowing recommendation to come into strength conditioning, but said like you have to really love it. You have to have a passion for it, And I think as long as you accept those terms coming in and you're real about it, like I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Like the reality is, I feel like a lot of strength coaches kind of vent to each other, and then at the end of the conversation, it's like, "But I love it. Like I can't get enough of it."
If you don't love it, I mean, what are you doing?
Like we're all a little bit crazy, and I think that's like something that I come back to a lot, and especially in professional baseball, is like the pay is not what you justifiably think you should get. Like you said, it's not in your control whether you get fired or you get renewed. A lot of it is outside of the hard work that you bring to the table. Like you might have to move at the drop of a hat. Like it's all very real, but we all like can't get enough of it. Like talking to you, like I can tell like you're already excited for 2023. And it's like, I know I went through days this year where it was like, man, this is really tough. And then you take a step back and it's like, I don't want to be anywhere else. Like this is where I want to be. Like part of the thing is like, you have to go through tough stuff. Like it's okay that you have a tough day, but you don't have a tough life. You don't have a tough job. You don't like, you really deep down, like you have an awesome job. You have a great life. Like you get to travel all the time. Like my wife's like, "Oh, let's travel in the off season." I'm like, I don't know if you realize, but I traveled to like 25 cities this year. I've been all over the place. Like, you know what I mean? And it's here, it's there, it's gone. And like, that's the thing is like, I said, like, I would love for this off season just to move on to the season. Right. But at the same time, like, I know that because she went through all of that stuff in the season of me not being here and being by herself and, you know, not family time because we're here, you know, like I owe it to her for being my support during the season to like give her my time in the off season. And it sounds like it's the same with you and your family. You have a good, you know, a good support group, but I think it's huge. You need it in strength and conditioning, especially in professional baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, kind of like you said too, the perspective of, you know, our job is pretty cool. You know, a lot of time we're spending, you know, watching a sport in the dugout, which is a great seat to do it. You know, and obviously like there's a lot of work that goes into that. But, you know, if you look, especially the past couple of years of just the world, you know, and you look at perspective wise of like what we do, like, you know, our job is, you know, there's hard things, hard parts of our job, but is it really that bad when you look at perspective? Like, man, I get to come to work every day and help someone try to get better, you know, and like they're not always ready for it because again, it's every day. Like we're human beings, and some we have good days and bad days. But you know, there's a lot worse things that could happen than just, you know, working in a professional setting and said like you have to travel away from your family, which is obviously, you know, always tough. But you know, we're coming home every day, or you know, in the off season, so you can't really, you know, totally complain.
Yeah, a good point there is like, for me, I try to be as consistent as I can each day because I know other people might not feel the same way, right? And if we can at least provide a consistent presence for guys, I think it helps us with buy-in, it helps with trust. And like you said, they let their guard down, they talk to us about things because they know we're going to be the same person. And it's hard to do that sometimes. Like you leave your family, and for you, you have kids. I have a dog. It's not the same, but you know, every day I leave and she just looks at me like, "Can you bring me?" And I'm like, I really wish I could, but I can't. And like on the drive in, I have to like put all of that to the side. I'm like, all right, it's time to put on like work face, be the same guy, so that these guys, you know, they can, when they come to me with something crazy, like I can handle it. You know what I mean? And it's not always easy to do. It's just part of the reality. But at the same time, you know, I get to go to Fenway Park every day. Like in the off season, I'm there 4 to 5 days a week. And when I drive in, I try not to ever take it for granted. You know, I come from a small town and like, I have a bunch of friends that text me, dude, I saw you on ESPN last night. I bet that Yankees game was crazy. Like, oh, you guys suck. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's like, you try not to take that for granted because there's so many people from that place where I grew up that would do anything to trade
Right.
places with me. Right. And it's like,
Yeah.
when you take that perspective, I think it changes a lot of things for you, and all of that other stuff, the money and not having control of your job and all that. Like, you don't really have to think about it. You just come in, you do your best work, and like people take notice when you work hard and you bring consistency and you bring good energy,
Right.
and you're just somebody that the players like to be around. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of a big deal when you're together
Right.
every single day.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So how about continuing education? Just books that you're reading, seminars you're attending, podcasts you're listening to. Just where do you go to stay on top of things?
I mean, so books wise, I mean, I can't say there's any strength conditioning books that I'd recommend. I think, you can find a lot of stuff everywhere. Like there's books I've obviously read, but I think kind of going back to where, we used to kind of be the mental skills people, like Mind Gym to me was a really good book. And then was it Coaching the Mental Game? Harvey Dorfman. He was actually, I think, I don't know, maybe one of the first mental skills people, in professional sports, I don't know, but with the A's a long time ago. And it's funny, that book was given to me by one of my first bosses. And then my first year in baseball, I just happened when I picked it up. So I had this book on my shelf for a couple of years, I think, without opening the cover. And so I was like, I took it along with me to go to my affiliate to work. And I'm reading this book and I'm looking at these things in front of me unfold. And like, this is what this chapter was about, and I'm watching it live. And, one of, kind of says measuring success is like one of my, I think, favorite, to me, I guess, accomplishment is, I had a pitcher who, had came back from rehabbing, like had just some really, really good success, like I think unexpectedly so. And then hits kind of the rough patch, like everyone does, because it said, baseball will humble you, it'll expose you, and it's how do you adapt. And like I'm just watching these chapters in this book unfold with this player. And so talk about like having the guard down, like, we're out in the field, like he's doing conditioning, and I kind of just mentioned to him, hey, like I kind of noticed this going on with you, like how are you doing? And I think me being said not a baseball person, coach, saying that to him, it kind of struck a chord, like, wow, you saw that? And it's like, yeah. And I think like I don't want to take any credit for like him kind of changing his path, but hopefully it did help him. But I think it did kind of change his demeanor, because like you could see on the mound how much he was pressing and struggling, and you just kind of saw like after that there was a little more calm, I think. And so that's a book that I recommend to people, because like I said, especially in our field, like it's a he has different books that are like the ACs of baseball, but like they're all kind of similar. But and it's funny because even a few years later, a player I had in AA was reading that book. And he was a guy, like one of the guys that's like just really strong, works really hard, and just the success wasn't coming with all his hard work. And so it's funny because I had my pitching coach when we were talking to him about it, and the coach asked him, like, did you read the book on relaxation? He's like, no, I skipped that chapter. And he's like, you realize in the first chapter of the book it says do not skip the chapter on relaxation. Like you can't go through all the alphabet letters of what to do and then skip this. Like this is one of the most important ones. And so again, just seeing that, being in the baseball environment with a guy who worked in baseball, like, and a lot of those things relate to baseball. So especially if you're in this field in baseball, I think it's a really valuable book to read. As far as other continuing ed, I mean, my interests that are kind of, I guess if you want to call them functional, I use a lot of kind of, like I said, dual resources of like athletic training, because I do have dual certifications, I have to maintain both. So I do need those anyway. But I use MedBridge for a lot of my CEUs, and then obviously like I'll find some different things too that like the winter meetings with PBSCCS has things that we do, and then mixing some just different things. So those are kind of like, I guess, my recommendations to people, especially because I feel like there's so many things that talk about like working out. I think kind of being open to other things that you can say implement into your programming to just diversify. And then just seeing like what can you do to make a more, I won't say holistic, but a very wide ranging program. And then you seeing how those things you can take to fit individual players' needs.
Yeah, there's so many resources now on just regular strength training, right? Like
Right.
basics, which we talked about are still important. And I think younger coaches that have been coming up are almost like skipping those for the sexy stuff or the fancy
Right.
stuff. And I think they still need to read that. But once you have a solid base of that, I mean, you can dig into anything nowadays
Mhm.
and again, like we said earlier, like the players are going to know about it, right? Like
Right.
the private facilities they go to, like one might be super FRC, one might be PRI, one might be, I don't know, swinging Indian clubs, one might be
Right.
really into Vipers. Like you might as well dig into whatever you can and just be open-minded because players are
Yeah.
going to come to you with it anyways.
Right. And like I said, even when some of these programs go like so far in one direction, there still might be a couple of things you can kind of cherry pick and bring into, like I said, your and kind of build on your foundation. It's kind of like the little branches, I guess you want to call it that.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Let's do a lightning round and then I can get you out of here. Just 4 questions, long or short answers, and then I promise I'll let you go.
All right.
All right, first one. Who is your biggest influence in the field of strength and conditioning?
I'm gonna go with 2. The first one was the first strength coach that I had as a athlete. His name was John Bolano. He has passed away since I trained with him back in college. I was a junior college football player, and I kind of like working out. I kind of fell into the weight room, and always liked it. He was the first one that really showed me how to train to be an athlete. And a lot of the foundations that he kind of gave me early on, I've kind of carried through. And then the guy that had my first job as a strength conditioning coach was Shannon Turley, who's one at Stanford. I think he's University of Colorado right now. He kind of showed me a lot of the things that kind of help you be a successful strength coach. As far as you have to be the most organized guy, most in the room most times, and they're going to look for you, to kind of make decisions on a lot of things that may not even have to do with strength conditioning, but because your preparation you put in, like you are ready to take on those tasks. So I think those 2 people are my biggest influence in the field.
Solutions finder, not problem creator. That's what I always say. And if you're organized, then you can figure out anything. Hey, what time is the anthem today? Boom, I got it for you. Nothing to do with strength and conditioning, but I know what time the anthem is.
Oh yeah, how many times do you get a question about schedule? Like, what's the schedule today? It's like, I mean, I know the answer because I'm prepared. So
it's on your phone. It's posted on the door. But yes, I also have it written on the whiteboard for you. That's what we're doing today. But yeah, again, it's like you said, being organized and being prepared, I think helps you kind of prevent a lot of those things from blowing up in your face. One piece of equipment to train with, what would it be?
I mean, say barbell, I guess is the easiest one. I mean, you can do so many different things with it. Obviously, squat, deadlift, RDL. You can, if you get a landmine tension, or if you just wedge it against, a corner, you can do pushes, pulls, all kinds of things. So I think that's just going to be, the one tool I think you can do so many different things with.
Biggest accomplishment professionally and or personally?
Oh man. I guess it kind of goes back to how do you measure your success. I think professionally, like, obviously being in the setting we're in is amazing. It's so fun. And like I said, helping try to build, from a team that was kind of going through a rebuild, reimagination, and getting them to where we, got to, being a part of that's awesome. But, again, I think this goes back to like just influencing, individuals' lives and having a positive impact. Really, so something I can kind of look at, and just that to me is the biggest success professionally. I mean, personally, that's my family. Like we talked about, like we need that support system. My wife's been awesome, and being that she is a physical therapist, I can bounce a lot of things off her, and she gives me different perspectives and tells me I'm wrong a lot of times. It's awesome. But then just having my kids, like the other day, they don't care what my job is. They don't care like who I hang out with. If I'm in a dugout or whatever. They just they love daddy. So it's just, again, perspective shift. So just personally, like my family is just number one.
Any career other than strength and conditioning, what would you choose?
I think firefighting, for sure. Like I said, when I was kind of in that transition of being out of the game for a couple of years, I had a lot of friends and came across people who were in the fire service. And one thing we kind of talk about is like a strength coach, like we're kind of like we're leaders of groups, but we're also like serving those that we lead. We're servant leaders. And I think the fire service especially is like really like serves community. And they're always, when you want help, you call 911, you want the fire service to show up. Like that's what you want. People are never really upset to see you. And, I think it's the one other setting too, we talk about like being in professional sports where we're all united to one goal. We're all like, together every single day, like in a, the locker room type setting, that camaraderie that comes with it. The firefighters, they're in the firehouse for 24 to 40 hours together, like the whole time, like training, practicing, going on calls, eating. I think it's just a really great service they provide, and I think just a really good setting to be in. And so I was pursuing it before I got this job, and if I didn't get it, I think hopefully I would have been in that service already. But definitely, if this was not here today, like I think I'd be there.
Right on. Derek, it's been awesome to get to know you. Obviously, seeing you across the diamond, but never really able to connect. We just don't play each other much. And just getting to know you and getting to talk shop, this has been really awesome. If the listeners want to get in touch, where can we get more? Is social media the best place, or is there somewhere else?
Yeah, probably social media. I mean, I have a Instagram account. It's called Coach Cantieni. Just it's all, I think, one word together. So CoachCantieni. I'm not super active on social media, but I try to post some things once in a while. But it's a good way. You can always reach out that way.
Right on. Well, again, I appreciate your time, and it was good to get to know you and talk shop, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, Chris, awesome. Hey, great to get to know you as well. Look forward to seeing you again in the future.
All right, everybody, that's going to conclude part 2 of this 2-part episode with Derek. I hope you enjoyed both parts of this interview. Like I mentioned in the episode, I hadn't really spoken to Derek prior to this, and between part 1, getting to understand and learn about his journey to the big leagues and talking X's and O's with him, and then more in part 2, just talking about perspective and support and things like that. It was really good to get to know him, and I'm really excited to have him as somebody in my network moving forward. And like I said, I hope you took a lot of notes and learned a lot from him as well. 3 things that I took from Derek in this episode: your impact in a player's life may expand much farther than just getting stronger in the weight room. Understanding and accepting the hardships you will face in this field will help you to determine if this profession is really right for you, and being prepared and organized will help make everything run more smoothly for you. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk to you again on the next one.